Thank you everyone. Today I'm going to be talking about how to ace SOC 2 for SaaS scale-ups. Now, SaaS scale-ups are a different beast than, say, maybe your traditional on-prem company or even a smaller startup. These are typical companies that are growing fast. I've worked with a variety of companies at different stages in SaaS, and I've seen the different growing pains that they've all went through. So I'm here to help guide you to do SOC 2 for SaaS. And we're not going to go into everything. It's only a 30-minute conversation here. And I'm going to go into some highlights and leave some time for question and answers. So questions and answers are my favorite part. So please leave some questions in there, and I'll check them about 10 minutes before we end. All right, great. So let's hop into it. So today we're going to just do a quick overview of SOC 2, understand some basics, some maxims. I like to have some maxims just for people can understand the philosophy of a particular thing. In security, we have a lot of maxims, so that's just how it is. And then go over the meat of the conversation, SOC 2 for SaaS, and talk about some particulars. And then we'll leave some Q&A. All right, here we go. And it's 8 a.m. over here in California, so I'm still working my way through my coffee. And so bear with me. All right. So a little about me. I've been doing cloud only since 2015. I first discovered AWS. I was working on an incident, actually, and it was just amazing. I was like, wow, this stuff's really cool. So I've been full-on cloud since 2015. I've never looked back and, not worked with any on-prem companies pretty much since then. I have a podcast. It's called Getting into Infosec. So it's kind of my way to contribute back to the community where I help catalog people's journeys into security so other people can be inspired and learn and motivated to get into the field, because we need a lot of people in security. So come on through. I also wrote a book called Breaking In, where if we sat down for coffee for about an hour and a half, this is exactly what I would run you through. This is a book geared for people that have no idea about security or really new to the field. So it talks about, I actually have homework assignments in there. There's some movies you have to watch and some shows you have to watch as well. I'm a bit of a coffee nerd. This is my coffee setup. So I think that's important to know about me because, well, my handle is Coffee with Ayman. So always happy to talk about, single origin coffee and things like that. And then the latest thing I'm working on is my newsletter. So I have a newsletter called Last Week It's a vCISO. So I function as a fractional CISO for startups. And so I share my lessons that I learn working with them, some reflections. It's a newsletter that's geared for people that don't have security in their title, but all walks of security are welcome. And I break down complex security topics in an easy to understand way. So feel free to check all that out. These are companies I've worked with in the past. So, both small companies and large companies. So I'm sure your company will fit somewhere in here as well. All right, so let's go into the basics of SOC 2. So SOC 2 has 5 trust criteria, okay? And they are, security, confidentiality, availability, processing, integrity, and privacy. So what does that mean? Well, the only required thing you need to do is security. The other 4 are optional. So really depends on what you're trying to do, what your customers and partners are asking of you, from a requirements perspective. Sometimes it's easy to just tack on availability, for example, because, you're already working and you're a SaaS company. So why not just set up a DR site and test that out? I mean, it's actually good practice anyway. So, but those are the 5 trust criteria. And then from there, you have 2 subtypes. So you have type 1. So SOC 2 type 1. Yeah, it's pretty confusing. But SOC 2 type 1, which is a point in time review of your controls. Okay. It's basically, okay, do we have these controls in place now? Okay. And that's when the auditor comes in, they'll do their work and they see if you have these things in place. Type 2 means that you have had at least 3 months or more of those controls in place. So have you had logging in place? Have you done, your exercises, your tabletop exercises, or your backups, or whatever it may be? Has everyone that's been onboarded through in those 3 months received training and done what they needed to do? So type 2 is a little more thorough, and some companies will do type 1 and type 2. Other companies will just jump straight into type 2. So it's really, there's so many ways to go about it. And that's actually one of the big things I'm going to talk about here, is that SOC 2 is not so rigid, but we'll get to that. And then, it's not to be confused with SOC 1 and SOC 3. SOC 1 is like more of a financial thing. SOC 3 is actually like an extension of SOC 2 type 2. It's like a abbreviated report that's, I guess, designed for like public review. And not to overwhelm you, but like, if I take three, I took 3 of the trust criteria in Sprinto, and there's 84 controls. So these are 84 different things that are required for you to meet in order for you to meet those 3 criteria. So not everyone is like a small job, right? They're all they have some, it's a combination of policies, combination of processes, and actual security controls in place as well. So going on the SOC 2 overview, one thing to understand is SOC 2 is not necessarily a prescriptive framework like PCI. PCI is like, you must do this. It's kind of like, is it there or not? It's very black and white. It's very flexible. You are supposed to design the controls yourself. So, that can be very overwhelming. And before companies like Sprinto came around, basically you bring an auditor. They would sit down with you and they would design the controls with you for your environment. But now companies like Sprinto have all, they've had the experience of different companies and have the designs, the controls already designed out of the box. So yeah, you are welcome to use a spreadsheet, of course, but I think that would defeat the purpose of this talk. So and so it's a combination of controls and processes. So do users have encryption on their laptops set up? Do they have screen timeouts? Do they have are they receiving training? Things like that. And then processes where, like, are you doing access user reviews? So is there a way to get approval when someone has new access and things like that? And so the big takeaway that I'd like you to have is that it's not black and white. It's pretty much 50 shades of gray. So SOC 2 has a lot of malleability. Even when you have a lot of the tools that are out there to help you manage SOC 2, there's still a lot of questions. Working with COOs and CTOs, they often have a lot of other specific questions, like, do I need to have letterhead in my policy? Or what? Like, no, you don't. But that's why I'm here. I'm here to help guide you through. And the folks at Sprinto are really supportive in that as well. And then SOC 2 is not necessarily a certification; it's a report on your controls. So there's a lot of misnomer, like, I'm getting my SOC 2 certificate. It's not a certificate; it's a report. So at the end of the day, you get a report from an auditor that has reviewed your controls, and that's the report. You could share, the whole report or parts of the report with your customers and things like that. I obviously recommend that you only share with NDA, and don't share necessarily the whole report right from the get-go. So, and also another misnomer is that just because you have AWS or Azure or GCP means that you're already compliant. That is such a misnomer. I still hear this now. That's not the case. These companies give you the infrastructure. They've taken care of the base set of infrastructure. It's up to you to put those controls in place. It's like someone saying, "Oh, this car is safe because it passed some safety tests." But it's up to you to drive the car safely, right? It's up to you to put the seatbelt on. It's up to you to follow speed limit and use turn signals when changing lanes. So that's, I think, an analogy to understand you can throw things in AWS and be really, really insecure, really easily. So, and then, there's also some things, compliance is not necessarily security. So just because you've met a SOC 2 standard doesn't mean you should rest easy. There are some things you can do to improve your security. I recommend, always staying aware. I think one of the biggest downfalls in the security sphere is when a security leader gets complacent in their security. So you want to really always be on top of your security and improve. I know, you're a startup and you're trying to grow and things like that, but let's not forget about our security. And even still, like even with SOC 2, if you do SOC 2 type 2, sometimes a lot of people, they just rest after doing that. It's like, no, you have to keep and maintaining it. So it's a journey. It's a long marathon that you have to maintain, even at the minimum of SOC 2 controls. All right, so that's been a lot of talking. So I'm going to hop into organizational maturity. So one of the things that's really interesting when you're doing SOC 2 is depending on where your organization is in organizational maturity, it's going to impact that a lot. So let's talk about that. So for example, I've seen scale-ups that, so, your people ops, right? Your people ops is going to be a big one that's going to be affected, right? How are they doing onboarding and offboarding? As you're a growing company, a growing scale-up company, one of the things I see often is, the people ops team are still doing things the old way. They're using spreadsheets. There's just sending out manual emails for onboarding, offboarding, and checking for the I-9s and all the particular documents, receiving driver's license and passports via email or saving it in a Google Drive, not having an LMS, background checks are being done ad hoc or not even being done at all. So, these are things that SOC 2 is going to want you to do it's actually going to make your job easier. So you could still do things the manual way if you want, but it's going to just make your, whoever's trying to do SOC 2, it's going to make their job a lot harder. So, sometimes I see a Google form, for a manager being filled out, oh, do you have a new employee coming on? They'll fill out this Google form. Like, what? So, you're going to have to improve your onboarding, offboarding. You want to have some sort of automation. Training is going to be a thing. So if you as a people ops manager were thinking about getting an LMS, then work with your security team on incorporating some security content in there. So some companies have an LMS, learning management system is what an LMS is, to help train employees on the policies and procedures and things like that. Your background checks, you're going to want to use one of the tools out there that will have they'll help track and automate background checks and handle the sensitive information for you, and that plugs right into tools like Sprinto. So that's a really good thing to have. Employee transition. So when an employee comes in and then they change jobs to another job, right? How is that being tracked? Are they getting extra access? How is that access privilege being managed? So when someone changes jobs, how's that going to be? I'm going to talk about IT a little later, but that's something important to understand. All right, we're doing good on time. So the next thing to talk about, and again, remember, if you have any questions, please drop the questions in whatever channel you're in. Awesome. Thanks so much. So supply chain risks. This is a big one. So you're a SaaS scale up. You're using a million tools to run your company. I remember in 2021, I think every single one of my clients had like an incident every month. So every month I was working on an incident because some, a DevSecOps vendor or whatever got a breach, and we had to deal with it. And just it's kind of funny, but these things happen on Fridays for some reason. So a lot of times, security things happen on Friday. Security incidents happen on Fridays. So what's important is, thank you. So find out what your critical vendors are, right? So it's really important to understand who your critical vendors are. Which, if this vendor went down, like let's just talk availability for a second. If they're not available, are you going to be able to function, right? Do you have a backup? What's their SLA? All those kind of things. These are things to think about. If they have an incident, are they prepared to run an incident? Do they have a security person in charge? Even a fractional security person, it's better than no one. A lot of times, no one is in charge of security. Security falls onto the the sorry sorry um security falls onto the VP of engineering or something like that. So yeah, so it's really like, your mileage may vary. Review their contractual obligations. So involve your legal team, find out what their contractual obligations are from a security perspective. All the things that your partners and your customers are requiring you to do, and your cybersecurity insurance is requiring you to do, pass that on. You're just gonna have to pass that on. Unfortunately, that's like the name of the game. But like, pass it on to your vendors as well. Make sure they're doing all the things that you have to do, because at the end of the day, you're going to be accountable, and the best way to make them accountable is through a contract. Get the lawyers talking to each other and have them deal with it. Find out what their incident response program is. Do they have the right email to notify you if there's an incident, right? A lot of times, uh, a notification goes to the email on record of like the admin who signed up for the service. So if I go sign up for a service for whatever, and now the whole company is using the service, but like I signed up for it a long time ago, a lot of times the founder signed up for it, and it's going to their email. I swear this happens all the time. The founder's email is the email on record, and the founder's busy. They're not gonna see it, whatever. And then the incident notification goes to their email. Oh, by the way, there's an incident. You need to do something immediately. Da, 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 da. And that email does not get seen. So make sure the notification for any incidents is the right person. Create a Google group if you have to for the main email for notifications. If the vendor is a more mature vendor, they'll have a separate email for billing, a separate email for incidents and security and technical and things like that. But a lot of times you'll find this software that the founder used, and now this company with 300, 500 employees is using this critical software. And anyway, I digress. So yeah, I think I covered most of the topics there. So I think that's something to understand. Supply chain is just something, it's really important. All right. Optimizing SOC2 for SaaS. Let's talk about IT maturity. IT is the biggest hurdle, one of the biggest hurdles after policies and processes. I've seen IT. I've seen IT. Long story short, basically, no one wants to handle IT. IT is that like group that just keeps getting shuffled off to different orgs. The CEO might handle, the COO might have it one day. Then he or she passes it on to the CFO. People ops, it's gone everywhere. So, in my opinion, I welcome IT. So I think IT has a good alignment with security. So, I'll take the IT folks. You guys can come with me. So, because IT is like the forefront of security. They're the front lines. So, I think this is the last topic. So, IT is the biggest impact to users, right? Getting them to change their behavior or like, install something on their machine. It's a big deal. So, I've seen this done wrong a lot of times, and then it makes users upset. It makes them, oh, why do we have to do this? And for security, and then they get upset at security, and then eventually the company hires a real security person, and they're like, and they're like, why did you do that? Like, I don't know. And so then the security person has to undo all that stuff. It's just a mess. So, do you have a dedicated IT staff? I've seen companies with hundreds of employees with no dedicated IT person at all. IT is run by like some program manager or project manager somewhere. It's like, I'm like, really? So make sure you have IT staff. If you have outsourced IT, which is very popular, and it's good that you have some sort of IT, keep in mind that is going to cost you extra. To get them to do SOC 2, it might cost you extra. So just take a look at your contract, find out, hey, we're trying to do SOC 2. Is this supported in our contract in SLA? Is this going to cost extra? Like, here are all the things we need to do. We need to roll out this software to all the devices. We need to make sure that these basic controls are set up, like hard disk encryption and things like that. Are you going to be able to do that or not? Even user access reviews, things like that. So make sure to take a close look and account for that if you're going to endeavor down the SOC 2 path and you don't have your own IT person. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I think communicating is really important. So another thing is, single sign-on. So I am a fan of single sign-on because it just makes my life easier. It's going to make your users' life easier. It's going to make your admin's life easier. It's going to make gathering evidence super easy. It's going to make access reviews really straightforward. It'll give you just general better security. One thing on access reviews, though, a lot of tools like Sprinto will have access review functionality built in. So you could leverage that as well, but it's not going to give you the depth as like single sign-on would, right? Single sign-on means that the user logs in one place and they have access to all these different apps. When they're offboarded, you just disable their access in one place and then they lose access to all the other apps. The downside, the really, really, really big downside is it's going to be costly. It costs more. So that's just a fact of life. In fact, there's a website called SSO.tax that someone I know created. It tracks all the companies that charge extra for using SSO licensing. So not only do you have to pay for the SSO software yourself, but when you use an app that supports SSO, sometimes you have to upgrade to their higher version. So, just an example, this is just, there's so many controls tied to access control in doing SOC 2. This is just like 3 of them right here. But there's, at least like 8 categories. Don't quote me on that. It was kind of late when I put this together. But there are several areas where access control is a thing. It's really huge. And, if you're a SaaS company, identity is the new perimeter now. It's been like that. I've been saying that for 5 years now. So identity is really crucial. All right, let's wrap it up. Oh, one last thing, DevSecOps. Just a quick note. If you're a SaaS, you have to have some good DevSecOps. Here's just some really quick recommendations. Obviously, you have to have pull requests that require approval. You should have that already. It's just good hygiene. Limit the number of admins because they could bypass, and create a break glass mechanism in emergency cases. This is where I'm talking about where you can have that flexibility. There's an emergency change that needs to be done on a Friday night, and you can't pull whoever it is, the lead, to approve your request. It needs to be done. Have a mechanism. If you just document it on what that mechanism if you just document what that mechanism is, the auditor will be totally fine with it. It's totally fine. Again, SOC 2 is very flexible. Okay, it's not super black and white. As long as you have documentation, a process for it, and you're following it, that's great. That's awesome. So just a thing on that. So a really quick summary: SOC 2 is not black and white. It's 50 shades of gray. It's going to force some organization maturity in non-technical departments like people ops, legal, and operations. And IT hygiene is really going to be like a big hurdle after your policies and your basics. So thank you so much. I'd love to open it to Q&A.
Awesome. This is like my favorite section of the webinar always. We have so many interesting questions coming in from YouTube, LinkedIn. Let's dive right into it. There's one in the chat specifically to what we were talking earlier. Hani mentions another downside of SSO is that in case one account is infiltrated, then all relevant access is compromised, right?
Can you repeat that again?
He mentions a downside of SSO in that case is if one account is infiltrated, then all other relevant accounts is compromised. Is that true?
Oh, yeah, you could say that, but as part of doing proper SSO, you have to have. I mean, I have a whole SSO guide. You have to have really good MFA. You're not using SMS for MFA. You have contextual awareness. So one big benefit of SSO is that you have context awareness. So you're logging in from let's say New Jersey, and then all of a sudden your credentials are used 5,000 miles away in like Iceland. Let's just say Iceland. SSO, if you have it set up properly with tighter controls, will detect that and force you to do extra login and notify you. You could even have limits as far as like only one person logged in at any one point in time. So there's a lot of flexibility, a lot of built-in controls to have that. I think the downside, as long as you set that up, the not having SSO, what really usually happens is you have people that are no longer with the company that have access to your software. So I guess you have to weigh the risk. But SSO can be locked down really well. So
got it. There's a question from LinkedIn, which I'm going to push right into this main screen. Can you provide examples of specific controls or processes that can be changed through automation?
Oh yeah, there's a whole bunch. So background checks, if you're using a background check software, that'll plug right into Sprinto. And every time you do a background check on an employee, they pass the background check, that is automatically sent to Sprinto. Training is another one. Let's see, through automation, pull requests. So, making sure that every pull request is approved, tying that up into Sprinto. It will pass the access, that there is some approval of software going into production.
Awesome. So I'm just going to push the next question. Is AICPA's GAP framework in itself, or is it a part of SOC 2? Also, can you talk about who needs it and when?
Oh, GAP is an accounting term. So I happen to know accounting stuff because I run a business. The gap thing is completely separate of SOC 2. That's an accounting thing.
Very interesting questions coming in. Haha. Yeah. This is really good. This is from LinkedIn. Haha, IT and security, the frenemies. How do you ensure the buy-in there?
Yes, exactly. I love how that's stated. If you're going down the SOC 2 journey, there's basically 80-20 rule that I've seen from a security perspective lately, especially lately with budgets being cut. 80% of the folks are doing security because they're being forced to do it by their clients and their partners, saying, "Are you SOC 2?" It's like, if you don't do SOC 2, then we're not going to do the business. 20% are being proactive. So I would like it to see more proactive. No one wants to spend time on security, but at the end of the day, if you're going to lose business because you're not SOC 2 compliant, that's really why it's being done. So that's typically what it is these days. It's good to be proactive, and I think from my perspective as a security leader, I need to communicate what the risk is of not doing security now and trying to do it later. Security is always going to cost you more the more you delay it. So it's going to cost you more, not only from a money perspective, but from a time and resource perspective. So your team is going to have to spend more time on it later. A lot of times business leaders are willing to accept that risk. But if you can frame it in a way that communicate, especially if you're a company handling really sensitive data, then, you should be very proactive in security. So like a B2B SaaS can be more. Anyway, that's my nutshell answer. We'll go to another question.
I think we can slip one more question in.
Sure.
This is from YouTube. How can companies effectively scope the systems and processes to be included in a SOC 2 assessment?
Scoping is really important. Yes, scoping is a great thing. I wanted to have a whole section on scoping. Basically, if you're doing it for the first time, you want to scope. Scope is going to determine everything. So if you have 3 different products, and but only one product is sold for enterprises, right? And the enterprises are the one asking for SOC 2, like if that's what it is, then just do SOC 2 for that one product. You want to scope as I don't want to say as low as possible, but you want to scope appropriately to meet your needs, especially if this is still new to you, right? So if there's only one product that's being requested or that's being sold to enterprises, and enterprises are the only ones that are asking for SOC 2, then there you go. That's your answer. Only deal with that one product, and that helps in segmenting out your environment. Hopefully, you have your product not in hopefully all your products are not in one AWS account and one VPC, right? You're gonna have to separate things out. So it really depends. If you have everything all in one place, then you might be forced to have all your products scoped to that. So it really depends on how good your hygiene is beforehand. But that's a great question. I think we could just have a whole 30 minutes on scoping.
You've got the next session in place already then.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ayman. It's been brilliant to have you for the first time. Looking forward to doing more sessions with you. I think RP has been